everyone, Mark Hackle, Macomb County Executive. John Paul Rea, Deputy Executive, just giving you our Monday update on what's going on with the coronavirus, so the COVID issue here in Macomb County. Again, very positive trends on a lot of the metrics, in particular dealing with the numbers and even the cases as well as deaths.
Mark, in that containment strategy, we're starting to not only see continued positive metrics as far as our 7-day average for deaths, which is under 1 at 0.7, our 7-day average for cases per million populations at 7.9, and then the percent positive tested on that 7-day average is well below that 3% metric to start opening up other elements, not only of the county, region, and the state, at 2.5%. Very positive numbers, managing all elements from public health side, also from an economic resurgence side as we're opening up new industries each day here in the county.
And interesting enough, I mean, there's no question about it, based upon the metrics, Macomb County has been. Not only are we currently in that phase 5, I guess, area of the state's plan, but we have been in phase 5 for quite some time. And so has the region. Yet, for some reason, some of these other businesses haven't opened yet. And interesting enough, as the businesses have been able to open, whether it's been manufacturing, allowing the landscapers to do what they're doing, retail, even seeing the hairdressers, the trends continue to go in a direction that we would like to see them going in. So business people are being responsible, but so too are the people that are venturing out to go to those businesses. I was at Partridge Creek just the other day. And interesting to see how the Apple store, as well as Lululemon, which my wife likes to go to, how they actually have lines where you've got to stand in 6 feet apart, wearing a mask, and they're testing you before you can even get into the store. So businesses are part of the solution. And here in Macomb County, we know that they're going to continue to be part of the solution. And we're hearing now, finally, that the gyms, our health clubs, are going to be able to open up on
June the 25th.
And that was based upon a decision on a federal judge. The gym owners had to sue to try to get some type of, I guess, relief and allow them to open in a responsible fashion. Now, interesting, there are people that say, but they shouldn't open, they're dangerous, people breathe hard and heavy or whatever. You know, I hate to discount that, but the reality is they're going to do it, and they're going to do it in a safe fashion. They're open in the north part of the state. They're open in the UP. They seem to be doing it responsibly. I believe they'll do it responsibly here, but the problem with the gym owners was they weren't getting direction as to why they weren't allowed to open. And that's the reason why they took it to court. And the judge just said the facts aren't here. The state did not make a case to show that they were going to be a danger or they were going to add to the problem. And with that, the judge made the decision that you can't just say because I say they are a danger. You have to prove it with data, statistics, and numbers. And the state was unable to do that. And the judge said that. And so they're going to be opening on the 25th. Not sure if the governor's going to appeal that decision or not. But, you know, you can't just, I guess, if you will, just arbitrarily say, here's what I believe without basing it on facts. And they weren't. And I go back to our facts here in Macomb County. All the opening that has been taking place very responsibly, the numbers are still going down in a very positive direction here, incredibly so. The curve has been flattened. But we're able to, as you mentioned just a minute ago, contain this through the support of our health department, notifying people if they test positive, making sure we're doing the contact tracing. And we're even here in Macomb County using the support of Public Works to test sewage in certain areas as a pilot project to see if we can't see community spread, maybe through wastewater. And so there's a lot that we're doing here in this county to continue to try to figure out how do we deal with this concern. But businesses are saying, hang on a second, we want to do this in a responsible way. We're not getting very good direction, and we had to have a court intervene in particular for the gyms. And again, I've been questioning that all along. What are the data? What are the numbers? If we're going to drive that decision based on that, show me the numbers. And the numbers are very much positive right now.
Mark, I think everyone across the board, not only from this county, but from specific private industries, is mindful of public health. So whether at first it was those in the construction industry that were able to start up outdoor operations, then it was manufacturing, as we saw companies from Ford to FCA, GM put together these massive strategies of hundreds of pages, how they're going to keep workers safe and ensure products are getting where they need to go to support our economy. Then as the restaurants started phase back in, each step that we have taken, we've also seen continued declines in the numbers. So I think it's the whole notion how collectively we've devised more modern strategies to combat the virus, and as you said, using those public health elements, whether it's the contact tracing, whether it's the relationship we have with our healthcare system, whether it's being mindful of our own symptoms and everything like that. Those are all things that lead to community-driven solutions of how the virus will attack.
And that's been the question as to, some of these businesses as they were able to open, wanting to know when they can migrate. But, if you stop and you think about it, we're fortunate here. We've got a lot of people that are supporting what's going on. They supported the governor with the shutdown early on, and everybody agreed with that. But getting it back up and running was going to be the challenging part and the concern for a lot of people. But the economic crisis was forcing that direction. People had to be mindful of that, and the governor needed to pay attention to it as well. And so, with that being said, you're going to start to see, I guess, a little more emphasis put on some of these other businesses that haven't been able to open, wanting to force that hand. And I go back to the executive orders. Mm-hmm. The simplest way of putting it is, we had a state of emergency here in the county. I know I've mentioned this before, but people sometimes get confused what that means. That's just so we can ramp up and make sure that if we have to bypass certain legislative processes to get things done, to get it so that we now can contain or control this crisis, we're able to do that in a very swift fashion. And we needed to do that, to purchase PPE, to reallocate personnel or resources, working with our community. So we got all that up and running. And now we've been able to flatten the curve, contain this issue, making sure our health department is part of the solution. It is no longer a state of emergency. And boy, if we couldn't handle it within this last 3-month period to try to figure out how do we contain it with all the resources we have, then something's wrong with our emergency management, something's wrong with our health department. We've been able to do that. The numbers support that. Even with businesses opening up and people getting back to some sense of normalcy, we've been able to keep those numbers down. So it is no longer a state of emergency. If we tried to push forward with a state of emergency continuation of that, all that would be is a matter of convenience to try to bypass the legislative branch, and that's not appropriate. The question is why at the state level had they been able to do that? Under that very same statute, the governor attempted to do that, the legislator pushed back. But what they didn't realize, there's a 1945 piece of legislation or law that still allows the governor to just bypass the legislature and continue doing that. And so she has. She's taken advantage of that. And now that can go on in perpetuity. As long as the governor says we have a state emergency, the legislature has no ability to stop that from happening. And I don't know necessarily that's appropriate. I don't think that's right. I think the legislative branch still should have some input into this. And obviously the other branch dealing with the courts, they just ruled on something where they weren't able to make a case as to why they arbitrarily said gyms can't open. And so with that being said, lashing out at the courts saying they have no role in this, I don't think is appropriate either. There should be no one person that has the ability, whether it's during a crisis or normalcy, that has full autonomy to control people's lives in coming up with executive orders and telling what to do. There still needs to be involvement on behalf of the legislative branch, and the courts certainly have a role in stepping in if they see that something is being done arbitrarily, and just on a whim. And so that's what's happening right now, and that's unfortunate. So here in Macomb County, we're confident we can continue to work through our processes with the legislative branch. We know we have everything in place to handle any concern that we have here on any uptick that might come our way. We can work with our businesses to say, you need to stop right now because something's going on. There's been a lot of testing, and we've seen their positive cases. Contact tracing, we can handle it. We're now working with the state to try to figure out how do we deal with those congregative care facilities by doing more testing for them. That the state kind of really wasn't, they were kind of behind on that. And so with that, there was a lot of problems or issues there. So there isn't one issue that we can't resolve or handle here without a state of emergency because we have our processes in order here in Macomb County. And we're very fortunate to be able to say that.
Mark, I think as we've reached the whole notion of containment, we are incredibly confident in the systems that we have in place here from the county. Obviously, across the board, 50 states across the nation still are using some form of emergency declaration to deploy what they believe necessary. I think at the local level, there's more of a comfort, there's more of a touch and feel and connection with the community to understand how we can continue to sustain these efforts and still get those positive numbers. I think that's a testament not only to the way that we've handled this from our Emergency Operations Center, it's a huge testament to our municipal partners that have stepped stepped up, been a part of the solution, the industry partners as they've rised up to, and then the healthcare system. We're in a very advantageous position as we move into this next phase, looking to normalize and socialize different elements each day here and really understanding how we all take that personal responsibility. While it doesn't mean that coronavirus is gone, it's just being mindful of how we take these purposeful steps.
And you bring up a good point. In other words, the issue is, it's still here.
Yeah.
It's still in the community. It's still around. So we're not telling anybody. We're making sure people are still mindful of the CDC guidelines, making sure you're keeping that distance, washing your hands. Masks are helpful with that. But also understand that they may not be required in some of these stores, restaurants, retails, or whatever it is. And if it's not, you know what, you can't sit there and all of a sudden berate somebody who is wearing one. If it's not required by that business owner, then obviously that's at your own risk, going in or not going in. And we understand people are very, very uncomfortable because of a health issue, because of an age issue, or because they just still are worried that it's in there. So make sure if you can stay at home, stay at home. If you do venture out, understand that there may not be a requirement going into a grocery store or restaurant by that owner of that restaurant to say that you have to. And if they don't, let's not get into arguments or berate people just because they're not. You can't do that. And a lot of these places don't have the ability to, if you will, police that within their own restaurants or bars. But again, understand if we find out there is some kind of community spread, testing a positive, our health department is going to be on that right away. So we know our business partners are going to be part of the solution because they have been from the onset. And with that, we've come up with some kind of a support here.
Absolutely.
That we care, Macomb cares about businesses here, small business. There's that CARES funding, macombgov.org. We're seeing the numbers, but surprisingly, not a lot of people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, Mark, to date right now, as we launched a few weeks ago, Macomb County Cares for Small Business, those business sustainability funds, $5,000 grants, cash grants that can go directly to businesses. It's online at macombgov.org. You can click on the link. It'll take you through the application process. A few things that you onboard, and you're ready to go through the eligibility and screening process. Please let individuals know that these resources are here, these resources are available, and they're here to help Macomb County businesses that want to be part of the solution.
And that's phase one. So shortly we're going to be working on phase two. We're going to try to get businesses that maybe are over the 50 or over employees. We're going to try to get them some funding to support that as well. So we're working on that. We just had a conversation earlier today about our budget. There is going to be a shortfall for 2021. We're looking at probably about a $13.5 million shortfall, and we're going to try to figure out how do we work through that with our county-wide elected officials, specifically my responsibility with all of our departments, but we're going to meet that challenge, whatever that entails. And so we got some creative ways to try to figure out how do we get through that. Budget this year will obviously come through as a balanced budget like we anticipated, but for next year is going to be a concern. And I think that's going to be the case for many local units of government as well as the state. The state is looking at a huge shortfall, and they're even looking for some support coming from the federal government to help them offset that. So it could be interesting to see how the state deals with it.
Absolutely.
That impact on the state is going to have an impact on locals when it comes to revenue sharing.
Mark, we're analyzing a number of trends, whether it's from a budgetary perspective, whether it's from a programmatic perspective, how that's going to impact the county. Because we are on sound financial grounds, we're going to be able to make those managerial decisions that we need to make, but also develop some of those modern solutions that will be able to push some of our partners at the state and federal level to allow us that latitude to do so.
In the schools right now.
Yeah.
We realize there's some kind of work groups that's going on. Mark Delden, he's actually my chief deputy executive here for the county. He used to work as a superintendent at one of the largest school districts in the state, Chippewa Valley. Did a remarkable job working through there, but now working with us. He is on that committee to try to work through the work group as to how schools are going to look moving forward if and when they open. We do believe, from what I'm hearing, they're going to be open. They're going to have in-class settings, but there will be other options as well. So that's all to be played out. I think you're going to get some more direction or information, hopefully coming out of the governor's office. But fortunately for us here in Macomb County, our ISD and our school superintendents have done a remarkable job of, I guess, dealing with this issue, but also moving forward as to coming up with ideas as to how it would best suit, the students here in Macomb County if we do open. And we are there at their side with any and all PPE they may need to make sure that they have those protections in place as a county. We've been able to afford the opportunity to do that through the CARES funding, so we're working in lockstep with our schools.
On a weekly basis, we have multiple engagements with Mike DeVault and the local superintendents across the county. It's been a really productive conversation how we're going to ensure that when the return to learn policies come down, whether it's from the governor's office or the State Board of Education, Macomb County will be at the forefront not only of student safety, of classroom engagement, and the ability to provide multiple learning environments.
Yeah, and on a kind of on an off topic, if you will, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see. They're doing some of those, if you will, movie theaters, a kind of drive-in movie, if you will, over at Freedom Hill. If you get a chance, check that out. It's actually kind of neat. Kind of reminds me back in the day when I was a kid, Mount Clemens Drive-In. I'd been there many a time as a kid growing up. I wasn't a teenager. I was a kid going with my parents. I've heard about those experiences where people would go there and try to hide in the trunk to get there. You don't need to do that. I think it's $20 per car to get there. There's an online, I think it's Macomb, I don't know if it's called Macomb Outdoor Theaters, Macomb Freedom Hill Drive-In or something like that. I forget the actual site itself, but there is a site available for people to look at, find out what the actual shows are going to be. And I think they show like 3 different shows a night, which is kind of neat. So check on that. It's been very successful. And they're doing a great job out there with that. So
creative ways in which folks are able to socialize a little bit more during these COVID times.
Yeah, getting some incredible feedback from that. So I'll go back to Census 2020 once again. We want to try to figure out how do we lead not only the state but the country when it comes to responses. We're doing a great job with that. Census 2020, bring back our money. So once again, if you haven't filled out that form, if you've got it sitting on your counter someplace, fill it out, turn it in. If you haven't, you can actually go online to fill it out. Please go to, if you need to go to macombgov.org to find out how to get to that website, you can do that as well. Again, we got all the resources and information you need on our website. So on that note, I just want to thank you once again for tuning in. On behalf of JP and myself, as well as the rest of us here from the county, we want to remind you to keep yourself as well as your family safe.